There's a house in my neighborhood that's been empty for as long as I can remember. Not abandoned, not falling apart, just empty. Clean windows, mowed lawn, fresh paint every few years, but nobody lives there. Nobody ever has, at least not since I was old enough to pay attention. It sits on Maple Street, third house from the corner, with a red door and white shutters that look like they were painted yesterday. The kind of place that should have kids playing in the yard and a dog barking behind the fence. Instead, it just sits there waiting. My mom used to tell me it belonged to the city, that they kept it nice for property values or something. Dad would nod along, but I caught him staring at it sometimes when we drove past. Not curious staring, more like he was making sure it was still there. Making sure it hadn't moved closer to our house overnight. The thing about the house is that it looks exactly like ours. Not similar, not the same style. Exactly like ours. Same blue siding, same black shutters, same crooked mailbox post that Dad keeps meaning to fix but never does. Same everything, except for the red door where ours is green. I didn't notice it at first. You don't really look at your own house when you're a kid, you know? It's just there like breathing. But when I was 12, I started walking home from school instead of taking the bus, and that's when I saw it. I was cutting through the neighborhood, taking a long way, because I had detention and didn't want to get home too early when I stopped dead in front of that house. It was like looking at a photograph of my own place, but wrong. Like someone had taken a picture and flipped it backwards. The windows were in the same spots, but the curtains hung differently. The porch light was the same fixture, but it was on the wrong side of the door. Even the crack in the driveway was there, but it zigzagged in the opposite direction. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, just staring. A car drove by and honked, probably thinking I was some weird kid casing the joint. But I couldn't move. It was like that feeling you get when you see your reflection in a funhouse mirror. You know it's you, but something's not right about it. When I finally made it home, I asked my mom about it. She was making dinner, stirring something on the stove with that distracted look she got when she was thinking about work. Mom, the house on Maple Street. The empty one. It looks just like ours. She stopped stirring. Just for a second, but I noticed. Houses in neighborhoods often look similar, honey. That's how they build them. No, I mean exactly like ours. Like, exactly. She turned around then, and her face had that tight expression she got when she was trying to decide whether to tell me something or not. Don't worry about that house, Danny. It's not important. That was it. In a conversation. But the way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me, made me want to know more. I started paying attention after that, walking by every day on my way home, taking mental notes. The house was always perfect, always clean, but it was never quite the same. The curtains would be open when they were closed the day before. The porch light would be on when it had been off. Small things, but once you start noticing them, you can't stop. And then there were the sounds. It started about a month after I first noticed the house. I was in my room doing homework when I heard it, a soft thudding sound, like someone walking around upstairs. But the thing is, my room is upstairs. The only thing above me is the attic, and nobody goes up there except Dad when he's looking for Christmas decorations. I ignored it at first. Old houses make noise, right? But it happened again the next night, and the night after that. Always the same rhythm, always the same time. Around 9 o'clock, just as I was getting ready for bed. Thud, thud, thud. Like someone walking back and forth, pacing. But not random pacing. Deliberate. Like they were following a pattern, or maybe looking for something. I asked my parents about it, but they just looked at each other with that married couple telepathy thing they do, and said it was probably mice. Dad even went up to the attic with a flashlight, but he came back down, shaking his head. Nothing up there but dust and insulation, he said, but he didn't look relieved. He looked worried. The walking sounds kept happening. Every night at 9 for about an hour. I started timing it. Always started at 9:03, always ended at 10:07. 64 minutes, exactly. But here's the weird part. I started hearing it during the day, too. Not in my house, but when I walked past the empty one on Maple Street. The same rhythm, the same footsteps, coming from the second floor. Like someone was pacing back and forth, looking out the window. I never saw anyone, though. The windows were always empty, always dark, even when the footsteps were loudest. I told my friend Marcus about it. He's the kind of kid who believes in ghosts and Bigfoot and all that stuff, so I figured he'd be interested. But when I described the house, he got this weird look on his face. "You mean the mirror house?" he said. "Mirror house? That's what my older brother calls it. He says every neighborhood has one. A house that looks like one of the others, but backwards. Like a reflection. That's stupid. Maybe. But he says you're not supposed to go inside. Ever. Why not?" Marcus shrugged. "He won't tell me. Just says it's not safe. That should have been the end of it. Should have been enough to make me stay away. But you know how kids are. Tell them something's not safe, and suddenly it's the only thing they want to do. I started hanging around the house more. Not going inside, just watching. Trying to figure out what was different about it besides the obvious stuff. The longer I watched, the more I noticed. The grass was too green. Not fake green, but healthy green, like it was fertilized every day. The flowers in the front beds were always in bloom, even in winter. The windows were always spotless, but I never saw anyone cleaning them. And the door. That red door. Sometimes I swear I could see it move, just a little. Like it was breathing. I started having dreams about the house. Not nightmares exactly, but strange dreams where I was walking up to the front door and it was opening before I could knock. Inside, everything was dark except for a light upstairs. The light from my own bedroom, but somehow wrong. Too bright, too white, like it was coming from somewhere else. In the dreams, I'd walk up the stairs, following the light. The house felt bigger inside than it looked from the outside, like the walls had stretched when I wasn't looking. The hallway was longer than it should have been, and the doors were in the wrong places. When I finally got to the room with the light, it was my room. Same bed, same desk, same posters on the walls. But everything was backwards, like I was looking at it in a mirror. And someone was sitting on the bed. It was me. Same face, same hair, same clothes. But he was sitting wrong, like he didn't know how bodies were supposed to work. His hands were folded in his lap, but the fingers were laced backwards. His head was tilted at an angle that should have been uncomfortable. And he was smiling. Not a happy smile, not a mean smile. Just a smile that didn't know what it was supposed to be. "You're not supposed to be here," he would say, and his voice was mine but off by just a beat. "This is my room. It's my room too," I'd say back. "No, this is the real room. Yours is just a copy." And then I'd wake up, always at 9:03, always to the sound of footsteps in the attic. The dreams kept getting stronger, more vivid. Sometimes I'd wake up and not be sure which room was real, which bed I was actually in. I'd have to touch the walls, count the windows, just to make sure I was where I belonged. My parents started asking if I was okay. I was losing weight, not sleeping well. My grades were slipping. But how do you tell your parents that you think there's another version of yourself living in an empty house down the street? I tried to avoid Maple Street for a while. Took different routes to school, stayed inside after dark. But the dreams got worse. Now the other me was standing at the window, looking out at the street, looking at my house. "I can see you," he'd say. "I can see your house from here. It looks just like mine. Stop it," I'd tell him. "Why don't you come over? We could trade places. Just for a day. Just to see what it's like." "No, your parents wouldn't even notice. We look exactly the same. We're not the same." "No," he'd agree, and that wrong smile would get wider. "I'm the real one." I started sleepwalking. At least, that's what my parents called it. They'd find me in the front yard at 3 in the morning, staring down the street toward Maple Street. Once they found me standing on the sidewalk in front of the mirror house, my hand on the gate latch. "Danny," my mom had said, and I'd snapped awake. "What are you doing here?" "I don't know," I'd said, and it was true. I didn't remember walking there. I didn't remember anything after going to bed. But I remembered the dreams. In the dreams, I'd been standing in the other house, looking out the window at myself on the sidewalk, watching my own body walk across the street like it was on autopilot. My parents started locking my bedroom door at night. From the outside. They said it was for my own safety, but it felt like being in jail. I'd lie awake listening to the footsteps overhead, wondering if they were coming from my attic or the mirror house. The dreams changed again. Now I was trapped in the other house, locked in the backwards version of my room. The other me was out there somewhere, living my life, sleeping in my bed, and I was stuck behind a red door that wouldn't open from the inside. I tried to tell my parents that something was wrong with the house on Maple Street, but they just looked at me with that worried expression that meant they were thinking about doctors and medications. "There's nothing wrong with that house, Danny," Dad said. "It's just a house, but it looks exactly like ours. Lots of houses look similar, not similar. Exactly the same, but backwards." My mom put her hand on my forehead like she was checking for a fever. "You've been having a lot of bad dreams lately. Maybe we should talk to someone. I'm not crazy. Nobody said you were crazy. But you're not sleeping well, and you've been saying some pretty strange things." I wanted to tell them about the footsteps, about the dreams, about the way the house seemed to be watching me. But I could see it in their faces. They'd already made up their minds. Their son was having some kind of breakdown, and the empty house was just a symptom. So I stopped talking about it. I told them I was feeling better, that the dreams had stopped. I pretended to sleep better, forced myself to eat more. I even started doing better in school, just to prove I was okay. But the dreams didn't stop. They got worse. Now the other me was out during the day, too. I'd see him sometimes, just for a second, standing in our backyard or walking past the kitchen window. Always when my parents weren't around, always when I was alone. He looked exactly like me, but he moved wrong. Too stiff, like he was concentrating on every step. His smile was too wide, too perfect. And his eyes were hungry. Soon, he'd mouth through the window. "Soon we'll switch." I started staying out of the house as much as possible. I'd go to the library, hang out at the park, anything to avoid being home alone. But even when I was away, I could feel him watching me, like he was learning how to be me by studying everything I did. The worst part was that I was starting to forget things. Little things at first, what I'd had for breakfast, what homework I'd done. But then bigger things. The name of my third-grade teacher. The color of my first bike. Like my memories were being drained away, stolen by someone who needed them more than I did. I tried to write things down to keep track of who I was. But every time I wrote something, I'd find the paper later with the words slightly changed. I like baseball became I like basketball. My favorite color is blue became my favorite color is red. Small changes. The kind of mistakes you'd make if you were trying to copy someone else's life but didn't quite get all the details right. I knew I was running out of time. The dreams were happening even when I was awake now. I'd be sitting in class and suddenly I'd be in the mirror house, looking out at myself taking a test. I'd be eating dinner and suddenly I'd be in the other kitchen, watching my parents talk to someone who looked like me but wasn't. He was getting stronger, more solid. And I was getting weaker, more transparent. Like we were trading places one piece at a time. I had to do something. I had to go to the house and confront him, or I was going to disappear completely. Become a ghost in my own life while he lived it better than I ever could. So that's what I did. On a Tuesday night in October, when my parents were asleep and the street was empty, I climbed out my bedroom window and walked down to Maple Street. The house was waiting for me. The red door was already open, just a crack like it had been expecting me. The porch light was on, casting a circle of yellow light that seemed too bright, too warm. I walked up the steps. The boards didn't creak under my feet, but I could feel them flexing like they were alive. The door swung open before I could touch it, and I stepped inside. The house was exactly like mine, but backwards. The stairs were on the right instead of the left. The kitchen doorway was where our bathroom door should have been. It was like walking through a photograph negative of my own life. But it felt more real than my house. More solid. The walls were straighter, the floors more level. This was how my house should have been if it had been built right the first time. I climbed the stairs, following the path I'd walked 1,000 times in dreams. The hallway was longer than it should have been, but I didn't hurry. I could hear him waiting in the room at the end. My room. His room. The door was open. He was sitting on the bed, hands folded in his lap, exactly like in the dreams. But now that I was seeing him in person, I could see the differences. His hair was combed the wrong way. His clothes were buttoned backwards. His smile was painted on, like a doll's smile. "You came," he said, and his voice was mine but hollow. "I was wondering when you'd get here. I want you to stop," I said. "Stop pretending to be me. I'm not pretending. I am you. The real you. No, you're not. He stood up, and his movements were too smooth, too practiced. Look around. This house is perfect. Your house is just a copy of mine. A bad copy. I did look around. The room was exactly like mine, but everything was just a little bit better. The bed was made with perfect hospital corners. The desk was organized with mathematical precision. The posters on the walls were hung at perfect angles. I can be you better than you can, he said, stepping closer. I don't make mistakes. I don't disappoint people. I'm what you should have been. I don't want to be perfect. Your parents do. They're tired of worrying about you. Tired of your problems, your dreams, your strange behavior. They want a normal son. I am normal. No, you're not. You're broken. But I can fix that. I can be the son they really want. He reached out his hand, and I could see that his fingers were too long, too pale. All you have to do is stay here. Live in the perfect house. Let me live your imperfect life. What happens to me, you get to be perfect too. No more worries, no more problems. Just peace. I looked around the room again. It was perfect. Too perfect. Like a museum display of what a teenager's room should look like. No personality, no mess, no life. No, I said. His smile flickered. What? I said no. I don't want to be perfect. I want to be me. You can't be me. I'm already you. No, you're not. You're just a copy. A reflection. And reflections can't exist without something real to reflect. His face started to change. The smile melted away, revealing something hungry and desperate underneath. You don't understand. I need your life. I need to be real. Then find your own life. I can't. I'm not real. I'm just a mirror. But if I can take your place, if I can live your life long enough, you'll never be real. You'll just be me badly. He lunged at me then, his fingers stretching out like claws. But as soon as he touched me, something strange happened. Instead of grabbing me, his hand passed right through me. Like I was the reflection and he was the real thing. But that wasn't right either. We were both reflections, both copies of something that had never existed. The house, the life, the perfect version of everything. It was all just a mirror reflecting nothing. I started to laugh. It wasn't funny, but I couldn't stop. The whole thing was absurd. I've been so afraid of being replaced by a copy that I've forgotten I was a copy too. What's so funny, he snarled, but his voice was getting thinner, more distant. We're both fake, I said. This whole time, we've been fighting over who gets to be real, but neither of us is real. We're just reflections of each other. The room started to shift around us. The walls wavered like they were made of water. The furniture began to fade. The perfect order dissolved into chaos. No, he said, but his voice was barely a whisper now. I have to be real. I have to be someone. Maybe that's okay, I said. Maybe being a copy isn't so bad. The house was collapsing around us, but I wasn't scared anymore. I could feel myself fading too, becoming transparent, but it felt like waking up from a dream, like remembering who I really was. The last thing I saw was his face, finally showing something real. Not hunger, not desperation, but relief. Like he'd been pretending to be something he wasn't for so long that he forgot how to just be nothing. And then I woke up in my own bed, in my own room, with sunlight streaming through the windows. My parents were downstairs making breakfast. I could hear them talking, their voices normal and real and imperfect. I got up and looked out the window toward Maple Street. The house was still there, but it looked different now. Smaller, more ordinary. Just another empty house in a neighborhood full of houses. I never had the dreams again. The footsteps in the attic stopped. My parents stopped worrying about me, and I stopped worrying about being perfect. But sometimes when I walk past that house, I can see movement in the upstairs window. Just for a second, just out of the corner of my eye. Someone pacing back and forth, looking for something they'll never find. I feel sorry for him now. For the reflection that wanted to be real so badly that he forgot how to be himself. Maybe that's what happens when you spend too much time looking in mirrors. You start to think the reflection is more important than the person casting it. The house is still empty. Still perfect. still waiting for someone to live there. But I know now that nobody ever will. Because it's not a house for living in. It's a house for looking at, for comparing yourself to, for wanting what you can never have. And maybe that's okay. Maybe every neighborhood needs a house like that. A place where all the things we wish we could be go to wait, perfectly preserved and perfectly empty. I'm older now, married with kids of my own. We live in a different neighborhood, different state. But sometimes my daughter will stop on her way home from school and stare at one of the houses on our street. A house that looks just like ours, but with a red door instead of blue. That house looks like ours, she'll say. And I'll take her hand and lead her inside because I know that some reflections are too dangerous to look at for too long. Some mirrors show you things that are better left unseen. But I don't tell her about the mirror house. I don't tell her about the dreams or the footsteps or the boy who wanted to be real so badly that he forgot how to be himself. Maybe she'll figure it out on her own. Maybe she'll be stronger than I was. Maybe she'll look at that perfect reflection and decide that being imperfect is better than being nothing at all. Or maybe she'll make the same mistake I almost made. Maybe she'll think that perfect is better than real, that a copy is better than an original. But if she does, I'll be there to remind her that reflections can't exist without something real to reflect. That mirrors only show you what you bring to them. That the most beautiful house in the world is worthless if nobody lives there. And if she asks me about the house with the red door, I'll tell her what my parents should have told me. It's not important. It's just a house. An empty house that's waiting for someone who will never come. Because the only person who could live there is someone who doesn't exist. Someone who is perfect in every way, except for the one way that matters most. Someone who is real. The mirror house is still there, in the old neighborhood. Still empty, still perfect, still waiting. Sometimes I drive by when I'm in town visiting my parents. The red door is still red, the windows are still spotless, the grass is still too green. And sometimes, just for a second, I can see him in the upstairs window. Still pacing, still looking for a way to be real. Still trapped in a house that was never meant to be lived in. I feel sorry for him. But I don't stop. I don't wave. I don't acknowledge that he's there. Because some reflections are better left alone. Some mirrors are better left uncovered. Some houses are better left empty. And some stories are better left untold. But I'm telling this one anyway, because I think it's important. Because I think there are other people out there who have seen houses like this. Who have looked into mirrors and wondered which side is real. And I want them to know that it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to be flawed. It's okay to be a copy as long as you're a copy of something real. The mirror house will always be there. In every neighborhood, on every street, behind every red door. Waiting for someone who thinks they're not good enough as they are. Someone who wants to be perfect so badly that they're willing to give up being real. Don't go in. Don't look too long. Don't let the reflection convince you that it's better than the person casting it. Because at the end of the day, a perfect copy of nothing is still nothing. And you, imperfect, flawed, real you are something. You are real. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.